Hey everyone, I see we have 15 people already viewing. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late. Please say hey in the chat if you want. If you have a YouTube account, you can chat. It should be in the right hand part of the screen. I'm just going to post a little something to show you where it pops up. And I'll give people a couple more minutes to enter the live stream since I just posted the URL. And then we'll get started. I'm gonna set up my bead mat. I'm pretty much set up, but I have a correction to share with you in the directions. And my phone is ringing, I apologize. There's my husband. Apparently my husband doesn't remember that I have my class from 1 to 3, even though I just told him a couple hours ago. So I'll call him back when we're done. Alright, so... Oh, hi people. Hi Vanessa. Hi Jill. Hi Nancy. Hi Geraldine. Hi Liz. Oh, this is cool. You have people from all over the place joining. Awesome. Well, I think I'm going to get started because there's quite a few of us now. And I'm going to start with that correction. I'll also post it in the chat in case anyone's going to miss it. So I'm going to flip my view to the picture-in-picture so you can see my bead mat. And I'm going to get my document camera on the part of the directions that needs the correction. So if everybody wants to pull out your directions, this is a correction on page 17. Okay, so it's toward the end. Step 42. There's a correction in the text. In the first sentence, it should say, pick up 115B, 115A, 115B, and then 115A. So we're going to cross off the 15B and put 15A there. And that's just so you have alternating colors on that step. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. There is another correction in regards to this part. I can't remember exactly where it is, so I will post that direction when we get to that part of the directions, which is the next strap. That's going to be the final part that we work on today. And I'll just leave that up for a minute for people to see while I type this into the chat. Hi Lisa, hi Lynn, hi Debbie, hi Susan, hi Marceline, hi Lily, hi Nancy, hi Rosemary, hi Opal Rose, hi Sharika, and hi again Lynn. I cannot see you. So the deal with this is that I cannot see any of you, unfortunately. So we're connecting via the chat mostly. I could see all your names and see what you write. Hi Cindy. Hi Mary Ellen. But I can't see you guys. And the next class I do, I might try to do it in Zoom, which I haven't tried hosting a class in before, but this is sort of my first try at doing an online class. And I just wanted to do it in YouTube because that's something I knew how to use. But next one, we'll see if we can do it in Zoom so I can see everybody's lovely faces. All right, so I'm gonna type the correction into the chat now. So if anybody's curious, they can scroll back up in the chat to this correction at any point and make the correction on the directions. Page 17 correction, step 42. Hi Sharon, yes you did find the video. Good. Hi Cindy, hi Sherry, hi Jan. All right, step 42, first sentence should say, pick up 115B, 115A, 115B, 115A. I don't want to see you, Susan. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Bead Stop. Oh, hi, Doreen. Hi, Jan. Hi, Sandra. Yes, I can see your writing, Lynn. I can't see your face, just your writing. And that's good. It's cool because I know that there's 43 of you watching right now. All right, so I'm going to take the directions away. So I just want to do a little intro about the necklace to kind of give you an overview of what it's all about. I'll hold up the finished piece that I have. So this is the necklace in person. It's got this bead embroidery focal pendant with the different seed beads and the Cone 6 Designs enamel and the Tierra Cast, I think they call it a butterfly finding, but to me it looked like a bee, kind of, or a moth. It, it looks like a few different things, but I think it's cool because in any of those cases it relates to the flower. We've got these Swarovski pearls and check fire polish beads up here, and then just all the seed beads. The backing is ultra suede. There looks to be a cat hair on there. Sorry about that. And then the bales are created with right angle weave, so those are off loom bead weaving, and then we have this off loom bead weaving neck strap. So I'm going to be going over all that today. We're going to start with the centerpiece, the bead embroidery portion. And I have a few different demonstrations set up to show you how to do it. So if you guys want to pull out your beads and bead along, you're welcome to. If you just want to watch and sort of see the steps that I'm going to be showing you, you're welcome to do that. If you don't have this project and you're just popping in to say hi, just say hi in the chat. And hi Deb, hi Carrie. There was not a correction before page 17. That was the only corrections that I have are for page 17. All right, so what we're starting with is the bead embroidery. I have to go back to my other screen, sorry. I'm just getting used to this process, so I'm trying to figure out how to do this without bungling it too much or making it boring for you. I have my needle threaded up with, this is just Nymo that I'm using. It's black Nymo, and I'm using a size 12 bead weaving needle. You can use sharps or glovers or bead weaving needles for sewing through this backing. And I also just want to say that the backing that you have in your kits, if you're working on a kit, is black, but my backing that I'm showing you today in the demos is gray because it's just easier to see. With the black thread that I'm using, it's easier to see the beads on it. But your base is black, and the base I used in my original piece is black as well. So I gave you what I have. There were a couple kits that went out right at the end that do have the gray base because I ran out of the black, but either way, it will fall to the background. You will not see the base behind the beads. All right, so the first thing we're doing is we're going to be creating a little bezel for this enamel, and you can glue this down or you can tape it down, that double-sided tape that I know some people like to use. There is a concave back, so you may have to put some sort of like a little piece of non-woven stitching base or use a lot of glue if you're going to glue it. I personally never have liked to glue these enamels down. I don't know why. There's just something about it. I feel like later if I wanted to repurpose it or take it out of the necklace, or if the necklace degraded and the enamel came out, it would still be intact and not have glue on it. It's just something about these, this is my friend who does these, that I just don't want to put glue on it, but you are more than welcome to. It won't ruin it, and it should hold it down because this is enamel, which is a glass coating on copper. So any of the jewelry glues that you would use for bead embroidery should work for this. But I like to hold it in place while I work. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to anchor my thread by bringing my needle through the back of my beading base. And you can tie a knot in your thread on the end so that when you pull it through, it doesn't come all the way through the piece. Or what I like to do is just hold my thread in the back and then stitch back through the stitching base, and then through the front again, and then through the back again, just to kind of stitch back and forth a few times to anchor the thread. And for me, I just usually do it that way because for me it's faster than trying to tie a knot that's big enough to not go through the base, and then I don't have to worry about how hard I pull. Once I stitch back and forth a few times, it's very, very strong, and it's not going to come undone. So now I need to hold my enamel in place while I work, and I'm going to adjust my focus on my camera so that I can hold this up while I work away from the bead mat. It's a little more comfortable up here. For this first row, which is the first part of your directions, steps 1 to 7, you're going to be back stitching a row of 11 A's around the enamel. And if at any point anyone has questions, please type them into the chat and I will address them as soon as I can during my demonstrations. So I'm trying to line up my threads so that I have room for my beads right next to where I'm going to be holding the enamel down in place. And you want to kind of have the enamel centered in the square of the non-woven stitching base so that you have room to add the larger tiara cast finding and the larger embellishment beads. I'm going to pick up 2 11As and I'm going to stitch down about 2 beads width away from where my thread is coming out of the stitching base. I'm stitching from the front to the back of the non-woven. Then I'm going to stitch up from the back to the front right before that first of the 2 beads. If you don't have Dymo, can you use 1G? Absolutely. You can really use any kind of thread for this. That's why I just chose Nymo, because I have this big hunkin' spool of black that I probably will never use up, and I'm just trying to use some of it. You can use Fireline too if you like, really anything. Nemo, yeah. It might be easier to see if you type in caps. Oh, yeah, it's cool, Nancy. Either way, you know, I can see the questions. That does make sense, though, to type questions in all caps to distinguish from the other chatting. Or to put question in all caps before your question. That's a really good idea. So I can easily pick out the questions from chat. And you guys feel free to chat, too. Because I did this whole thing so that we could all kind of be together in a way. And be doing something that's the same together. Alright, so once I've gone through my 2 beads again, I picked up 2 more beads, and I'm going to stitch down about 2 beads width away from those first 2 beads. I'm holding the enamel firmly in place to sort of use it as a guide, because I want these beads to be right up against the edge of the enamel. Then I'm going to stitch through the non-woven stitching base from back to front, 3 beads back. Let me see if I can focus this better so you can see where my needle's coming out. And I apologize for those of you who are well versed in bead embroidery. This might be redundant for you. You may have already known how to do this technique, but I wanted to make sure to go over it for any people who are new to this. So I've gone up before the 3rd bead back, and now I'm going through all 3 of the next 3 beads after where my thread came up from the back. I have to move my light because I keep hitting it. Okay. So I'm just going to keep doing that all the way around. Pick up 2 beads, stitch down about 2 beads width away, and then up before the 3rd bead back. And I'm trying to also stitch up like between the 3rd and the 4th bead back so that my needle comes out right between those 2 beads. And if you can get it, the more exact you can get it where your needle comes up, the neater your back stitch row of beads is going to be. So I'm going to just work this whole row around, and if anyone else has joined us, wants to say hey, or anyone has any questions, now's a good time while I just back stitch away. I know there's a few people that might be joining us that have already completed their project or started it at least. So for you guys, this might be super boring. Might be a good time to grab a snack or do whatever you have to do if you need to step away for a minute, because I'm going to do this whole row. I need to do this whole row in order to do the next demo for you. And then I have a couple pieces set up that are further along for the following demos. If anyone has a chance between doing your beading, or if you're not beading along with us right now, tell us where you live, if you want. I don't want to pressure anyone to tell us where they live if they don't want, but it's cool to see that there's people joining us from all over the place. I know where a lot of you are located, but I just think it'd be neat for everybody else to see where everybody's located. Hi, Sue. Hope you're having a good day. It's super rainy here today. It's been rainy and cold. That's what our springs are typically like here in Connecticut. Good beading weather. Nancy, you think it's amazing that I can do it neatly while holding my focal in. You would have dropped it. Cool. Well, thank you. There's something about the feel of this. I don't mind it. Where are we from? We're from Tampa, Florida, Missouri, Vermont, New Jersey, New York, another Missouri, Greenwood, Missouri, Las Vegas, Massachusetts, Georgia. Wow, this is cool. A lot of East Coasters. Hi, Karen. I'm so sorry your kit didn't come on time. Next one of these that I plan, I'll make sure to plan it a little further out, since shipping is a little backed up at the moment. I thought, a few weeks would be enough time, but it apparently is not for our international people joining us. So I'll try to plan it with at least like 6 weeks so that there's enough time to ship kits to anyone who wants one in order to join along. And if you don't have your kits right now, if you haven't received it yet, it's stuck in the mail, this will be available for viewing later on. The only downside to it is you won't be able to chat live with everybody or me, ask questions live. But you can always email me too if you have questions. Liz is from Worcester, United Kingdom. Lake Murray, South Carolina, Cape Cod. Rhode Island. Hi, Roma. Georgia, Chicago, Illinois. You're welcome for doing this class, Roma. Thank you for joining me. If anyone's just joining us now, I'm just doing the first step of the focal bezel, the back-stitched row of 11 A's. And I'm holding my enamel in place, sort of roughly centered. You can see it's a little off-centered, but that's okay. As long as I have a little bit of room on all sides to put the larger beads later. And I chose not to glue down my enamel. You're welcome to glue it down or use double-sided tape. I just personally don't like to do that with these enamels. It won't ruin it or anything. For some reason, I want it to be free within the bezel so that I could take it out later if I wanted or something. We got more places represented. Washington, Maryland. Cool. We get people from all over. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. If anyone joined us after the start, there was a correction. Oh, look, my row is going a little askew. I'm going to have to fix that. I have to come in a little bit. There is a downside to holding this in place and trying to talk, and see, my curve of my beads is a little off. But you know what? I'm just going to make it work. And try to bring the row in a little bit. The nice thing about bead embroidery is that it's really forgiving. If you have beads that are kind of going astray from where you want them, you can always stitch back through them and make sure to stitch down through the bead embroidery in a direction that kind of pulls them, stitch down through the base in a way that kind of pulls them in the direction you want them to go. Where are my little helpers, Vanessa? Well, the baby is napping. I planned this specifically during her nap time because the way that she helps is she likes to throw my bead mat onto the floor. So I figured I would need her to be napping, and Adelia is watching cartoons with her brother and his PCA right now. She's gotten used to this routine being home with me. When her sister goes down for a nap, she and her brother and his helper watch cartoons for just a couple hours while the baby sleeps so that I can do a little bit of work. Since they're home with me all the time now, that's the only chance that I have in the middle of the day to do any work. Sylvia, this is a highlight of your week. Oh, thank you. That's very sweet of you to say. You're welcome for doing this class. Have to go to work soon. I will have more kits available. There's a couple of you that are asking that. I ran out of the supplies for the first round, but I just had my friend, she was available to do 20 more of these enamels. So I'll be making 20 more kits and posting them on my website just as soon as I get the rest of the supplies in the mail. I had to order more of the Tiara cast findings. Question, are we aiming at having a specific number on this base row? Just divisible by 2 carry, and if you have an even number, you still may end up having like a set of beads in the next row that's a little bit off, but you can kind of fudge that, because for the next part, the next part requires a group of 3 beads between each little picot thing that we're going to be making. So actually, I mean, this doesn't have to be divisible by 2. Now that I'm thinking about it, really I just do the 2 bead backstitch because to me it's like the neatest way to do backstitch around a curved shape. Hi Mary from Illinois. Hi Karen, Norfolk in England. Yeah, things are not normal right now, are they? It's a strange time. But it's nice to have all of you that like to do the same thing that I do. It's funny because when I tell people that don't know about this craft, who aren't in like the industry, as we say, and have never done it, they have no idea what it's like. It's nice to have a group of people that just understand what it's like and enjoy the same strange thing. So thank you all for making me feel like I have a community. Sylvia, I will save you one, for sure. Hi, Betty. All right, we're almost done with this backstitch row, and then I'll be able to demonstrate the next step for you. Oh, hi, from Cheshire. That's semi-local. I hope you're doing okay, staying well out there. In our part of the state, we've been pretty lucky. We're a pretty rural area, so we don't have too many active cases of COVID, but I know down in the state, closer to New York, as you get closer to the more populated areas, it's gotten pretty bad. So I hope you're doing okay. I have a following. Thanks, Nancy. I love you too. We are all in this together, Lynn. I think that's so important to remember. Yes, you are enabling me too. So beading is like my escape. It's my respite from the rest of my life, which can be a challenge. And it has been ever since I had my son. So I really appreciate having time to be able to do this. And I appreciate all of you helping me to make this a living for myself so that my work can also be my respite. Getting a little teary-eyed. Sorry. I just want you to know I really do appreciate you all. There's a storm rolling through PA right now. Oh, you know what? That's probably the same one we're going to be getting because we're supposed to be getting high winds later. I wonder if it's the same storm traveling through from west to east. Working from home, taking a break to watch me. Cool. I'm glad you're able to do that. I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce this. Emlis Heckler D'Angelo. Melissa, is that how you say your name? Did I get that right? Hi, Lisa. All right, I've got 2 beads left. We're almost there. All right, I've got my last 2 beads on. And I'm gonna just stitch through a few of the beads, the first few that I added in this row. If you want to, at this point, when you have your first backstitched row, if you're not happy with how it looks, if any of the beads are too far apart, you see any gaps that you don't like, or if the beads kind of go off in a little bit of a different direction, you can always run your needle through, just stitch through all of the beads again, all the way around, and that sort of pulls them together and kind of straightens them out a little bit. All right, so that was sort of steps 1 through 7. This is not going to hold the enamel in place. It's going to be the next 2 rows that actually hold the enamel in place. So the next row, I'm not going to show you the whole thing. I'm going to do one of those fancy things where I do a couple stitches and then I pick up my piece that's already, the whole row is already done. So this would be step 8. I'm going to show you step 8 to 9. Hi, Michelle from Long Island. So for the next row, I'm going to be adding groups of 3 15As. Coming out of any 11A in this first backstitch row, I'm going to pick up 3 15As. And I'm going to stitch through the same bead in the backstitched row again. And I'm going to put the needle in here and then pick this up closer to the camera to show you. Refocus this. So I came out of the bead, headed counterclockwise, picked up my 3 15As, and I'm stitching through that same bead that my thread is coming out of in counterclockwise direction again. So I'm creating a sort of a loop with my thread. When I pull tight, these 3 beads kind of sit to the outside of the 11. Then I'm going to stitch through the next 3 11As in that backstitched row. And then repeat, picking up the 3 15As and stitching through the same 11A in the backstitched row. And you can actually stitch through the next 3 beads at the same time if you want. So you're going to be stitching through a total of 4 11As in that backstitched row after you pick up the 3 15As. Okay, so, Melissa, thank you for telling me how to pronounce your name. I do remember you now from the Bead Society functions. All right, so once you go all the way around that, this is what you're going to have. You're going to have these little groups of 3 15As going all the way around your circle, and you may end up with like 2 that are a little bit closer together. I'm going to show you this detail down here. Just depending on the number of 11As that you've added to your backstitch row, I apologize, I thought there was someone coming down my driveway. You're going to, you may have a couple that are closer together, like these 2 here. But that's okay. What you can do when you do the next row is just sort of make it work. So I'm going to go on to the next row, which is starting with step 10 and then goes through step 13. What we're going to be doing here is, thank you, Nancy, I'm glad you like it already. You're going to need to stitch through to one of the 11As that's below one of the groups of 3 15As. You're going to stitch up through the first 15A in that group of 3. You're going to skip the middle one, so don't go through the middle one, and you're going to go down through the third one. What that's going to do is it's going to make that middle one sort of stick up a little bit more than it would otherwise. It's going to create a more triangular shape out of these 3 15As. and it's going to put your thread working in the opposite direction from how you were working before. All right, now you're going to pick up a 15B. So that's the other color of 15. And you're going to stitch through the first, I'm going to try to do this so the light, I'm not blocking the light. You're going to try to stitch through the first 15A in the next group of 3 from the, sort of from the bottom up. You're stitching toward the second bead in the group of 3. Then you're going to skip the middle bead in that group of 3 15As and stitch through the third one. And I have had feedback that this part can be a little fussy, and that's true because what's happening is that these groups of 3 15As tend to want to sit to the outside, and when you stitch through them, they're going to be pulled to the inside. So you just have to be really careful about your thread wrapping around any of them as you work or tangling. You don't want that to happen. So from there, you're just going to repeat. You're going to pick up a 15B, stitch through the first 15A in the next group of 3, skip over the middle 15A in that group, and stitch down through the third 15A. Sort of get your thread to pull tight to pull that group of 3 beads together. Does anyone know how to make the chat visible on a phone? Ooh, good question, Nancy. I usually just use YouTube on my laptop and it's automatically visible. I'm sure there's a way to do it. Hi, Emily. Thank you. If anyone knows the answer to that question for Nancy, would you let her know how to show the chat on a phone? There's probably like a little button or a menu somewhere that's not obvious because they like to make things look sleek and then you can't see how to change things. So bear with me while I stitch this row. Does anyone have any questions thus far? Maureen, you had to make a channel for the chat to be visible? Weird. Aw, thanks, Kathleen. That's really so nice of you to say. You're very welcome for this. It's fun for me too because this is the first time I've had a class or any kind of teaching since this whole coronavirus thing really got going. And it feels nice to be able to keep doing what I'm used to doing and what I love doing in a different way, but it's still nice. Oh, trying to help a friend, Nancy. Well, thank you for trying to help. I would say if she can't figure it out, she probably would find an answer pretty quick if she just Googles the question, how to show chat on YouTube on a phone. I ask Google a lot of questions, and it's pretty good about finding the most relevant answers and putting them right at the top of the search results. So Roma, yeah, you want to kind of use a tight tension on this because what your aim is to pull these 15-0 picots down right against the surface of the enamel because this is the step that's going to hold the enamel in place. I'm sorry, Emily, that you can't find this kit. I swore you bought it when we last had class together. But maybe not. Maybe I am misremembering. I will have more available soon, and you'll be able to rewatch this so that you can, see the steps done if you want. But the kits do also come with complete directions, so you don't have to watch this to create the piece. It's all there in the directions. Oh, hi Karen, thank you. She's saying I have the most unique bezels. I appreciate that. I like coming up with new ways to do things. Roma, is she beading? I don't know. Are you beading, Roma? Or just hanging out? The thing too that was challenging, why I came up with this sort of bezel for this enamel, is it's it's a domed shape, which I specifically asked for from Sherry. She does a lot of flat enamels, and I have an example of that I'm going to show you in a little bit, but I wanted it a little more domed like a cabochon, but the doming is very slight, it's very subtle, so I didn't even think a peyote stitched bezel would really, I thought it would be too, like, too cylindrical, like the sides would come up too quickly. You really needed something that sort of started curving in immediately. So I tried a couple times and this ended up working. And yeah, if you just pull tight, the tension does need to be super tight, and there's not going to be much space at all between the beads. Is there anyone here that is working on a different project besides Emily? She was able to get the chat visible. Yay! I'm glad, Nancy. Wait, Roma, where are you? You're not at home? Well, thanks, Lisa. I like the doming too. She mentioned at one point that that was an option. I think it just adds a little something, adds a little bit of extra dimension to the piece. Cone 7. Cone 6. You know why she's called Cone 6, Emily? Because in ceramics, when you're firing things, they talk about the temperature that each material needs to be fired to by which cone you need to fire it to. The cones are, they actually make these cones of different pieces of material that melt at different temperatures. And so the cones are indicative of like a certain temperature, and you can look in your kiln and see when the cone is melted, you know that the kiln is up to that temperature. I'm sure that there's probably thermometers now on kilns or another way of telling the temperature, but that was sort of like the old-fashioned way of telling the temperature. Does Sherry sell art on her website? She doesn't sell art on her website, cone6designs.com, but she does sell her art on her Etsy shop. If you just search Etsy for Cone6 Designs, her shop should pop up, and she's been doing a lot of buttons for quilters. I know she has a bunch of buttons on there right now. She has a few enamels on there right now, and she's always willing to do custom orders, or just, you know, if you contact her either through Etsy or her website and ask her for something, she's more than happy to make things like one-off pieces or something she's made in the past. So please contact her if you want anything at all from her. She's really sweet, really nice to work with. You're doing your second life cycle, Betty? Oh, you're doing the gold and blue one. Cool. You may have gotten the last one if you ordered it recently. Those are just about out now. Maureen, you assume these are decals or stencils. So actually, what's really cool is she sort of developed this technique. Oh, I don't know that she developed it completely herself, but what she's been doing is taking photographs. This is actually from a photograph of a wild geranium, which is a wildflower that grows around here that is a great bee flower. The bees really love it. And she took a photo of it somewhere in our town, locally, and somehow she transferred the photo, or she modified the photo in a way that it could be printed as a simple sort of outline like this on a piece of paper with a special ink for her printer, and then she actually places the paper onto these enamels when she fires them. During one of the firings, she does a few to get the different colors and stuff, but the ink turns this rust color and sort of gets, I don't know what the exact term is, but it gets ingrained within the glass of the enamel so that it becomes a permanent sort of thing. So it's pretty cool. You looked it up when you made the dragonfly earrings. Oh yeah. Yeah, she can keep making those, Emily, if you want more of those dragonfly, or I think they were technically grasshoppers, but they do look like dragonflies. She does a lot of stuff from nature. So she has a lot of designs that have insects on them, or birds, leaves, things like that. And she does abstract stuff too, which is really cool. All right, so I have just finished that row. So now this enamel's held pretty well in place. If you try, you can still get it out. Like if I were to fold this away from the enamel, and just keep going, it would pop out. But I'm just not going to do that, and when wearing, I don't think that's going to be an issue, especially once you put the backing on, it's going to become a little bit stiffer. All right, so that's totally bezeled. What we need to do now is add the row of 11B that's backstitched along the outside of this row of 11A. Oh no, wait, I lied. We're going to go on to the next step. We're going to start placing our large tiara cast finding and then our 6mm pearl. So I used all the tiara cast findings that I had in the kits. So I don't have one for demonstration purposes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch down this little finding that I have opposite the 6mm pearl. And so if you have a kit where this triangular sort of component is, you're going to put your butterfly component. Okay, so if you're following along, you'll stitch your butterfly component down here and your 6mm pearl opposite. So that's the next step. I'm positioning this finding at this corner so that I have enough space around it to backstitch some beads around it. It just started raining like crazy here. Can you guys hear it? I will be making more kits, Lily. I'm going to be making 20 more kits. I'm just waiting for more of the butterfly and the butterfly findings and the cherry blossom button from Tiara Cast. I'm waiting for those in the mail. And then I'll be making more kits. So I need to work my thread down to the spot where I'm going to add my finding, and I'm just doing that by stitching back and forth, making kind of small stitches along the outside edge of the backstitched row of beads to work my way down there. You can also, if you rather, weave in your thread, tie it off, and start a new thread. And you're going to be using your 11 Bs and your 15 Bs to anchor your finding down. There's some spaces toward the bottom. Did anyone hear that thunder? Spaces toward the bottom of the butterfly finding, just underneath the top set of wings, where you're going to add an 11B in each of those two little holes. And then there's a little space right at the bottom underneath the abdomen of the butterfly where you're going to add two 15Bs to anchor that down. Emily, I will save you one. For sure, for sure. I'm going to be going back through this chat and making notes on everyone who said they wanted one after we finish today so that I don't forget everyone who wanted one. All right, so you're just going to kind of place your finding the way that you like it, with however much overlap you like on your piece, and try to get it so that it's at a right angle to the enamel. because you're going to be placing your 6mm pearl at the opposite point here. So you kind of want to have a straight line between those two. So I have to improvise with this piece because it's not the piece that I should be using, but I ran out of those. So I'm coming up through this hole here. I'm going to add an 11B and stitch back through. And the bead is a little bit bigger than the hole, so it just kind of sits in place and it'll hold the finding in place. And you want to reinforce, you want to stitch through the bead a second time, up through the bead and back down through the base to make sure that it's going to stay put and the thread's not going to break. I'm not doing it for the demo just so I can move on, but you definitely want to do that with your piece. Alright, now I'm going to stitch down. I'm going to add a couple 15Bs further down here, trying to get through the hole of the finding, which can be a little tricky. I'm just stabbing from the back to the front. Oh, and I just got through. I just had to stab a bunch of times to try to get my needle through. It's kind of just the way it goes. I hear Adelia. At some point, you guys may get to see Adelia and or Estella, depending on who has what going on. I will try to limit that, but you know, when you're home with kids, it's a little complicated. Do you need to reserve a kit now, or do you think we can grab one when you get them ready? I don't think that people are gonna reserve all 20 of them in this YouTube chat today, Nancy. So you'll probably be able to just grab one next time they're ready. If that happens, I will make an extra one for you, okay? All right, so now my focal, my finding is in place at the bottom of what's going to be the bottom of the pendant. I want to place my 6mm pearl directly opposite now because I want to make sure that where I stitch it down it's going to be directly opposite. I don't want to start stitching anything in between until I get those big pieces in place first, so I know that they're right. And I'm weaving in my thread right now because my thread's really short and we don't want to deal with a short thread anymore. I'm just stitching back and forth a few times, very close to the beadwork, to anchor my thread in place. I don't usually tie knots with bead embroidery, just because stitching back and forth is just as good as tying a knot. It secures everything in place. And I'm just going to grab some more thread. Is the rope made with 11O seed beads? The rope is actually made with 15O seed beads. It's with the 15A and the 15B that are in the kit. And it's just tubular netting done with those two colors of beads. It's the rows alternate. So you do a row with 15As and then you do a row with 15Bs. And then a row with 15As, etc., etc. Alright. I actually have a knot at the end of this thread. It just happened to be there. Cool. Alright, so I don't need to do weaving this time. I'm going to anchor this thread up near the top of the component where I want my 6mm pearl to go. Oh, and I forgot to mention when you're anchoring your, or when you're finishing your bezel, right before you finish that row that really holds your enamel in place, make sure it's rotated the way that you want it because it's going to kind of be stuck in place after that. It'll be hard to change, you know, the orientation of the enamel. So if you care about that and you want it oriented a certain way, because one side's a little darker than the other, make sure you have that set before you proceed with the bezel. Alright, so I'm going to be placing my 6mm pearl right here. And so I'm trying to estimate about where my needle needs to come out to be on one side of the pearl before I stitch through, and it's about here. YouTube keeps quitting on you. Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy. Yeah, come back if you can. Alright, so I need to come out about there. I'm just going to put my thumbnail down right there to kind of mark where I need to come out. This isn't necessary, it's just kind of my weird OCD thing about stitching. I try to make the neatest stitches I can, and then when I mess up, it can always be corrected later, but try to get it right the first time. Alright, so I got the pearl on my thread, I'm going to be stitching down. This is a little skew. I'm going to be able to wiggle it one way or the other. Okay. I'm going to stitch down right after the pearl. And that will anchor it in place there. And with larger beads like pearls or crystals or other beads that are larger than seed beads, you always want to go through at least twice. And when you stitch up, stitch through the bead, and stitch back down again, try to stitch at in a slightly different spot than the first thread pass through, because what that will do will help hold the large bead in place so it doesn't wobble back and forth. If you have like more than one anchor point on each side, it'll hold it steadier. Melinda says hi. She's here live but can't chat. Oh, hi, Melinda. I hope you got your kit. It says it was in your mailbox this morning. Okay, Melissa, you're going to try the netting with 11s? Yeah, you definitely can. If you're doing a project like this where you're going to be making bails off of the top of the bead embroidery to go around the next strap, you just want to make sure you make them long enough that they can wrap around the rope. So you want to have a little section of rope done before you add the bails, so you can make sure that they're going to be long enough to reach all the way around. All right, so I've got my 6mm pearl in place. The next thing that I'm going to add is my 4mm pearls. I'm going to add them on either side like that. I'm just going to start with one though. So I'm going to bring my thread up next to my 6mm pearl. I'm going to refocus this because I see the focus is a little off. I'm going to pick up my 4mm pearl and stitch down. Carol told me what you said. Okay, yep. I'll make sure that you get a kit. Let's see. All right, and then you stitch up before the 4mm pearl in a slightly different spot. Yes, I hope YouTube will let you stay tuned. Hi, Jeannie. Thanks for joining us. I'm so glad you're here. Oh, Emily, thank you. I appreciate that you're saying that you like getting the little tips that I have. Yeah, there's things that like I don't even think about writing in the directions. That you're totally right. That there's these things that I do that I don't think about unless I'm just kind of talking about what I'm doing. All right, so I've got my 4mm pearl on there. The next bead I'm going to add next to that 4mm pearl is a 3mm fire polished bead. So I'm adding it the same way as I added those other larger beads, stitching down and then back up before the large bead, going through the bead. Oops. And then going down. And then the 2mm fire polished bead is next. How many 4mm pearls should you have in your kit? You should have 2. Please tell me you have 2, Sue. If you don't, I'll send you another one if you only have 1. Oh, thanks for saying that, Jeannie. I'm glad you're here. Definitely not necessary to chat, but I'm glad you said hello. So now I'm adding the 2mm fire polished bead, making sure to go through it twice. Will I hold 2 kits for your friends in your beading group? Absolutely, Jill. Thank you for writing that because, like I said, I'm going to go through the chat after this class ends, and I'm going to write down everyone's names who is saying they want kits so that I can make sure not to list those on my website when I make the next batch. And just to tell you what I'm doing now is I'm stitching my way over to the other side of this 6mm pearl because I'm going to add the same smaller embellishment beads on that side. You'll find one in your stash. I'm sorry, Sue. I don't know how that happened. It's only 2 beads. I only had to count out 2 beads. Oh, I'm sorry. These things happen. But just so everyone knows, if you ever have a kit shortage from me, I'm really, really sorry. I really try my best to put enough beads in my kits to be the correct number and also to make the pieces longer than I would make them for myself because I'm a diminutive person, so all my jewelry is kind of small. but I know that, you know, people sometimes need more beads. And if you're ever short beads, please just contact me and I will send you the beads that you need, because I'm not trying to short anyone on purpose. I'm really trying to get enough beads in everybody's kits, but sometimes mistakes happen. And sometimes I'm distracted. I have other things going on. I kind of have a busy household. So, you know, I do make mistakes and I really try not to, but it just happens sometimes. So I apologize in advance if that ever happens to you. And if it does, please just contact me and I'll send you what you need. All right, so I am adding, you have 2 4mm and 1 6mm. No, Susan, that's the right number. You're gonna have 1 6mm pearl here and 2 4mm pearls here. And then you're gonna have a separate bag that has your 3mm fire polish beads and your 2mm fire polish beads, and you should have 2 of each of those. It's not a lot of embellishment beads, just a few, just a little touch. So I might see this type of master classes online being a wave of the future. It's definitely possible, Jeannie, that people are going to be doing more classes online. Hey, I just noticed this fire polished bead isn't faceted. That is interesting. I don't know if you guys can see. The bead that my needle is through right now does not have the cut facets like the other ones do. Oh well, that's cool. It's going to be a unique bead on my piece. I have a unique focal on this one too. That's fine. I'm just going to roll with it. Thank you, Nancy, for saying I'm awesome. Alright, I'm adding the 2mm fire polish bead now. Let me refocus this. Every time I move the piece closer to me or farther away, I have to refocus the camera. Alright, so let me just show you what I've done now. I've got my focal on the bottom. I mean my, gosh, what do you call this thing? It's a brass component I have on the bottom. And opposite it, I have my larger embellishment beads, my 6mm pearl, my 2 4mm pearls on either side, my 2 3mm fire polish beads, and 2mm fire polish beads. They should be roughly opposite the focal on the bottom. And if it's not perfect, honestly, I never fret if this stuff isn't perfect, because nature itself isn't perfect. Everything's like slightly asymmetrical and, you know, sometimes just a little askew. As long as it looks relatively balanced, I'm happy with it. So now from here, what I'm going to do is start adding my row of 11 bees. That's the pink bead if you have the kit, the transparent or translucent pink bead. It goes from the bottom focal around the to the outside of the backstitched row of 11 A's all the way up to the embellishment beads at the top, and it just meets up with the 2mm fire polish bead at the top. So I'm actually starting from the top and working my way down toward the brass component. And I'm going to actually do 3 bead backstitch at a time for this, because I'm not making a bezel or anything out of this. I don't need filigree, that's a good word for it too. I don't need to have an even count of beads or any particular count of beads going around. So for going around, 3 beads at a time for me is sufficient. You can still do 2 bead backstitch if you like. 2 bead backstitch is sort of the gold standard for having a really neat backstitched row of beads, but from experience, I know that I can add 3 beads at a time and get away with it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add 3 beads at a time, stitch down through the base, stitch back up. I'm going to go 4 beads back. So my needle's coming up between the 4th and the 5th bead back. And then I'm stitching through the 4 beads. And that makes it go a little faster too. And you know me, if you know anything about my life, I'm all about getting things done quickly, because I have a very limited amount of time to do beading and to work because of all the other stuff I got going on. So if it's faster but you get similar results, I'm all for it. Alright, so wow, it's really raining. Can you guys hear that? I think I'm just going to show you, because it's like, oh, it's hailing. You might not even be able to see. Oh, you can kind of see it dripping down the window over there. It's hailing and raining like a hurricane right now. So that's fun. Alright, so yeah, I'm going to do a couple more stitches and then I'm going to put this piece down and I have another piece to show you. So at this point, if you were beading along, I know I might be jumping ahead of you a little bit. I apologize for that. I just wanted to make sure to try to fit everything in this 2-hour class that I wanted to show you to make sure that you're getting a little sampling of all the different techniques in this piece. Alright, so I would just keep going all the way down here, and then I would do the same thing on the other side, starting from down here, going all the way up. After this row is another, you know where I know where to put the needle. I feel like Roma with the needle thing with bead embroidery, it's like a 10,000 hours thing. If you've done it for at least 10,000 hours, you can kind of just put the needle where it needs to go because your hand kind of just gets used to where it needs to be. And I just realized my baby monitor isn't on, so I apologize while I look away momentarily to just turn the baby monitor on my phone on so that I can tell when Estella wakes up. There we go. Okay, she's still sleeping. Good news. All right, awesome. That was not a guarantee because she has been teething. Her last of her 4 2-year molars is coming in, so that's a little bit rough for her. All right, so the piece that I want to show you next is, oh wait, sorry, before I finish with this piece, I was going to say you're doing this backstitch row 11 Bs around the 11 As, just a row of backstitched 15 Bs. So same technique, just backstitching beads along the outside edge of the previous row of beads. But with the 15 Bs, you're actually going to go around the bottom focal. So you're going to outline the bottom of the focal with the 15 Bs, unlike the row of 11 Bs where they just stop when they meet up with the focal. With the 15 Bs, you want to create a line around. Just keep back stitching around, trying to follow the contour of the finding. And same thing at the top. You're going to backstitch the 15 beads all the way up and around the embellishment beads on the top of the pendant. So that just sort of outlines everything, emphasizes the shape of this piece. That would be the final row of bead embroidery that you're going to do before gluing this piece down to the Ultra Suede in your kit. So you have this square of Ultra Suede in your kit. There is a front side and a back side, but I have a hard time telling which is which. And to be honest, I'm not sure how much it really matters because they both are just a nice finish. I'm going to look at a couple questions now. Do you start at the fire polish for the other side too? You can start at the fire polish bead when you work from the other side of 11 Bs, but you can also start down here. It really shouldn't make a difference which side you start at. Joanne, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm sorry about that. You can definitely watch the first hour later, Joanne. It'll be up on my YouTube indefinitely. I don't plan on removing it. So YouTube's like recording this, and it'll be available for viewing anytime later. Will you add one more of my beading group friends to the list for a kit? Yes, definitely. Thank you, Jill. It's a druck. Oh, the fire polish that's not faceted? Yeah, I guess you're right, Emily. That is a druck. That's the name for a round check glass bead. Alright, so back to where I was talking about the Ultra Suede. When you finish your bead embroidery, you're going to spread jewelry glue or fabric glue. Sometimes I use just fabric fusion. Any sort of crafting glue that adheres to fabric will work. I just happen to have this one with me. You would spread it over the back of the bead embroidery, making sure you cover the threads with the glue, and you can even go a little bit beyond the outside edge of where your threads end, just to make sure that the two pieces are going to adhere together. Yes, Roma, you can go through all the pearls if you want to pull them together a little more, close in the space between them. You can definitely go through them all. They're all in a row, so that should be easy to do. So once you spread your glue on the back, you're going to take your Ultra Suede and place it down on the back of your piece, and you're going to put it aside, let it dry for at least at least 15 minutes to get tacky. If you really want to keep working on the piece, you don't want to leave it for that long. It should be tacky within about 15 to 20 minutes. It should be pretty well dry within a few hours, but totally dry within 24 hours. So I usually just kind of put my pieces down and let them sit for a day and come back to them the next day, which is what I did with this smaller piece that I'm going to use as a sample now. So I did this guy because I wanted a smaller piece to show you some of the following techniques, and I used a different enamel from Sherry. Sorry, Sandy, that you missed the first hour. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Jeannie, I will put you on the list for a kit. So I glued this to my Ultra Suede. So it's pretty well set. It's not the Ultra Suede. It will not come away from the non-woven base. And now I want to show you the step where you're going to cut out along the outside edge. And I do want to just make a note that I was just talking about how with the kit you're going to be doing a backstitch row of 15 beads along the outside edge of your finding on the bottom and the embellishment beads on the top. I chose to not do that for this particular piece because I was just using a glass bead, and I did not want those beads to come around the bottom of the glass bead because it's sort of sitting at an angle. I just didn't think I would like that look, so I just stopped them at the larger glass bead. But what you're going to do next is you're going to cut out. You're going to cut both the non-woven base and the Ultra Suede base right up next to the beads as close as you can without cutting the thread between the beads. So you want to be careful. You're not going to be cutting any threads that are holding the beads in place, but you can get really close to the beads. And it's good to use a really sharp pair of scissors for this step. You know, with your beading thread, you can get away with scissors that aren't completely sharp, but for this step, you're really going to want the sharpest pair of scissors that you have. And you're trying to follow the contour of the beaded row. Now at the bottom here, I need to kind of manipulate this, pull this flower bead up a little bit so that I cut the non-woven and Ultra Suede base so that it's not going to show sticking out from behind the large bead. Okay. So I've just done my cut. I'm happy with it. I'm going to leave it as is. If you look at the edge, you can see the two layers. And now the next step is to do a brick stitch edging, stitching through both of the layers along the edge, adding beads there. So I've got some thread already attached. This was the thread that I used for the bead embroidery for this piece. And I'm going to add a sharp needle for this. And actually, the needle that I'm going to use is a size 10 Glover. These beads are super, super sharp. They have a sort of a flat edge toward the tip. And I believe they're called Glovers because they're meant for sewing leather gloves. But they work really well when you're trying to get through these two layers of fabric that are glued together. So I'm going to adjust the focus here. I'm going to answer a couple questions. Is there a reason for not cutting out the bead embroidery piece before gluing it on the Ultra Suede? I usually cut them at the same time so that it's exactly the same contour of both. There are pieces where I cut the non-woven base first, then glue it down, and then cut the Ultra Suede. It kind of depends on the piece for me, but you can definitely do it that way with this piece. If you rather cut the non-woven first, glue it down, and then cut the Ultra Suede around it, that's totally fine. Alright, so brick stitch edging. You're going to be doing brick stitch edging with your 11 A's that are in the kit. This is a great bead embroidery technique for covering up the raw edges of your non-woven stitching base and Ultra Suede. The first stitch, you're going to pick up two beads. So in this case, two 11 A's. And for this little piece, my 11 A's are this teal green color. You're going to stitch about 2 beads width away from where your thread is coming out. I'm going to adjust this focus again. You can stitch from back to front or front to back. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes it's easier to stitch from front to back just because you can kind of move the beads out of the way so that you're not going to be catching thread between the beads or coming up between any of them. You stitch from front to back. It's easier to get around those beads sometimes, but you can go either way. You pull tight, and then you're going to stitch up through that last bead that you added. So if you notice, I'm stitching up through the part of the side of the bead that the thread was coming out of last. And when I do that and pull tight, it's going to make that bead sort of sit with the hole against the edge. Now after this, from here on out, I'm going to only be adding one bead at a time. It's only the first stitch that has 2 beads for this simple brick stitch edging. So I'm picking up 111A, I'm stitching through the base and the ultra suede, sort of it's about 1 millimeter to 2 millimeters away from the edge. You can see it's sort of underneath where that backstitched row of 15s is. Let me adjust the focus again here. Whoops, that didn't work. Alright, let me try this way. So it's sort of underneath this backstitch row of 15s I'm trying to get through here. And I'm now stitching about half a bead's width away from the previous bead, because this bead is going to need to have, it's going to have half the bead on one side of where the thread goes in, and half of the bead's going to be on the other side of where the thread goes in, right? Because the thread goes through the center of the bead, through the hole. So now I'm pulling, and I'm going to stitch back through that same bead. It's pouring there, Nancy? Yeah, it seems a little bit like a hurricane. It's kind of crazy. Where was my thread coming out of before I started doing the outside? It was, I had left it just coming out of the non-woven stitching base to the outside of the backstitched row of 15 beads. So it was just kind of hanging close to the edge from the front side, on the front side of me. The focus here is bumming me out. It doesn't seem to want to focus on my beadwork the way I would like it to. Let me fuss for a second. Bear with me. Okay. That looks better. Alright, so I'm going to pick up another 11A and stitch from front to back about half a bead's width away from the last one. Pull tight, then stitch back up through that bead. And just continue this process all the way around. Thanks, Nancy. I'm glad you like this focal. This is another one that Sherry did for me. I had a teaching piece a few years ago that had a large version of that with the sort of grassy looking stuff on it. It was I think 50 millimeter size enamel. It was pretty cool. If you're using beading needles for this process, you might end up bending them quite a bit, because when you add the glue between these 2 layers, it really kind of stiffens everything up. It can be really hard to get through if you don't have a super sharp needle. I also like to use John James sharps. I have a bunch of size 11 sharps that work really well for this sort of thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little cheat, because I don't want to do the edging all the way around while you guys are watching. You get the idea. You're going to be going all the way around the edge. When you come back to the beginning and you add that final bead, you do have to stitch down into the first bead that you added. After you add your bead, stitch through the base and then back up through the bead. Stitch down into the first bead, then through the base again and back up through the first bead, and that's going to straighten it out. Because if you look right now, this first bead is going to kind of sit a little wonky. But when you come all the way around and stitch through it again, it's going to straighten it out like that. You wish Sherry had this focal available now? Joanne, she's home, trying to just work from home. She's usually doing other things, but she will totally make you one. Just email her and ask her. I think it's cone6designs@gmail.com, all one word, no capitals or anything. You can also reach out to her through her website, cone6designs.com, or her Etsy shop if you look up Cone6Designs on there. John James straw needles are bigger than sharps and smaller than regular. Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of those. All right, I'm going to do a little cheat. Like I was saying, I'm going to stitch over. I want to stitch over to the start and just do a little bit of edging along this way, because from there I'm going to show you the bail. My needle does not want to go through this bead, so I'm going to add another bead and hope that my needle will be able to stitch through that one instead. It is a size 10, so it does get a little tricky to get it through the beads multiple times. I'm just kind of working my way over to this first edge bead, stitching very shallowly along through just the non-woven base underneath the beads. That's my little cheat that I do to travel from one spot to the next sometimes. And I'm stitching out of that first bead. So I'm going to do some edging in the other direction now. That bead, my thread doesn't want to go through. I think these are permanent finish or Duracoat beads, so they have a little bit of an extra coating on them, which can fill up the hole a little bit and make them a little harder to get through. Makes the holes a little smaller. What is her Etsy shop? I think it's just called Cone6Designs Lynn, but if you go to Etsy and type in Cone6Designs, you'll find maybe one of her pieces or her shop. It'll come up in the search. When I tried to look for her shop the other day, I just typed it in, and it was the very first result in the search results. After I do this step, I'm going to end up switching back to a beading needle because I'm going to be doing a picot along the edge. To embellish the edge beads a little bit, and it's going to be easier to get through these again if I use a size 12 beading needle. Alright, so I've got enough done to show you the next step, which is the edge picots. I'm going to be using my 15B, which for this little sample piece, it's this green opalescent silver lined bead, and my 15A, which is this bronze bead. Nancy, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying this. I'm going to switch out my needles, as I was saying, to a beading needle now. Nothing like watching someone thread a needle, huh? Okay. Thanks, Sandy, for saying I was doing a good job. I appreciate that. You guys are all making this very easy for my first attempt, and I really appreciate that. Alright, so I had to look at my directions just for reference. This is step 32. You're going to be starting, when you're doing your piece from the kit, you want to start doing your picots along the edge, which are these guys. You want to start working on them somewhere about down here, or down here, somewhere close to the bottom on one of the sides. And the reason that I'm having you do that is because If you end up not having an even number of edge beads, you're going to have to kind of fudge the last picot, so it's sort of a shared picot where you have one edge bead left instead of two. So by starting it in one of those spots, you're going to be less likely to actually see that difference when you look at your finished piece. If you were to start it up higher or directly on the bottom, you might see it more. So coming out of one of your edge beads, down on the side, if you know you're working on the piece from the kit, you're going to pick up a 15A, a 15B, and a 15A. You're going to stitch down into the next edge bead, all the way through. Not through the non-woven base or ultra suede, just through the two edge beads. Then out the next edge bead. And again, I'm not stitching through any other beads or the non-woven base. I'm just stitching through that edge bead. I'm glad you're having fun, Roma. And then you just repeat. 15A, 15B, and 15A. Stitch down through the next edge bead, up through the one after that. And I will go back later and finish my edge beads so I can do these little picots all the way around. And I'll end up gifting this to someone, probably. Because I'll have most of the work done, so why not, right? Alright, so I just want to do enough so that you kind of see the pattern. And then I have beads off of which I'm going to build the bales. So that's what it's going to look like all the way around by the time I'm finished. But the next part is going to be building the bales off of those picots that you just created. You're going to pick the two picots that are just to the side of the top center of the edging. And it may not be perfectly symmetrical because, again, depending on where your edge beads fall, they may not be exactly at the top point of the pendant, but I promise you, you're not going to notice when it's done because it's going to be close and the overall look is going to be cohesive. And this is all sort of based on natural stuff anyway, so a little bit of asymmetry is fine as long as it's balanced. So I'm going to pick this picot to work a bale off of and this picot to work a bale off of. I'm just going to show you one though. I'm going to show you the bale off of this picot. Having the two bales just kind of, it puts more weight, visual weight up at the top of the pendant than just having one in the center. It helps keep it a little more, keeps it from turning or rotating on the rope. And it just kind of, I feel like the visual weight helps because the bottom is so heavy with the B component. You love the edging? I'm glad you love the edging. You love the 15B color? You know what, I should tell you what this is, but I think I left the tube of beads downstairs in my bead cave, as my husband calls it. So what I'm doing is a little cheat just to get over to that picot where I was talking about adding the bale. By the time you're done with the edging, you probably should end your thread and start a new thread to do the bales with. But what you're going to do is come out of one of the edge beads so you can get up into the beads in the picot that you're choosing to work the bale off of. So I'm stitching through the 15A and the 15B. This is workable for you, Lynn? I'm glad. I didn't want to make a challenging piece for this first online class that I'm doing. Alright, so this bale is going to be a flat strip of right angle weave. Don't get scared. It's going to be okay. It's just picking up 3 beads, 3 15Bs, and stitching through, 3 15As, and stitching through the 15B that's at the center of that 3 bead picot on the edge bead. Let me add beads, excuse me. So when you pull tight, you see you've got a total of 4 beads. That's a little right angle weave unit. Thanks, Nancy. I'm glad you think it looks magnificent. Then I'm going to stitch through the first 15A of those 3 and the second one. And I'm going to put my thumb and my pointer finger and pinch this picot and pull my thread tight to really tighten that up. Then I'm going to repeat, pick up 3 15As, stitch around through that same 15A my thread is coming out of, then stitch through the first and second 15As in that group of 3 I just added. Lisa, you were scared of bead embroidery? Aw, I'm glad you're not anymore. It can be fun. Alright, so that's my second right angle weave unit. Those 4 beads right there. So I'm just going to repeat this until I have a total of, I believe it's 9. Okay, for some reason my streaming software had disconnected, but it just said the connection came back, so I think we should be good. I'm just going to keep going and hope that I'm actually still streaming. I think I am. It's a little laggy. Well, I hope you can still see what I'm doing. I'm going to continue stitching this veil until I have my 8 right angle weave units. Oops, I just realized I made the light go away. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have to do one more. Alright, so now I have my 8 right angle weave units with my 15A. And I'm going to wrap this veil around. I'm bringing the last right angle weave unit around to meet up with the first right angle weave unit. So it's going to be connected to the 15B on that, in that picot. I'm going to connect it by picking up a 15A, stitching through that 15B, making sure this doesn't twist, picking up a 15A, and stitching through the 15A on the end of that last right angle weave unit. So I'll show you what this looks like. I've gone around in a circle and I sort of made a right angle weave unit. Let me adjust the focus. So it's a right angle weave unit incorporating that 15B. And when you pull it tight, it closes up and it's all 15, it's all right angle weave. So once you've done that, that's one of your bales. And I apologize, but for some reason my YouTube is saying that I cannot connect to the chat. And I'm not really sure what to do about that. And just see if I can Google this problem because I want to be able to chat with you all. So bear with me for a moment. I'll be right back. Well, I don't have any good answers. I wonder if you guys can hear my clicking while I search the internet for the answer to this question of why the chat doesn't seem to be working on my end. Yikes, okay. I'm so far not finding anything helpful. So, I'm just going to hope that you all can still chat. And unfortunately, I can't see what you're saying. All right, I'm just gonna keep going, and I apologize if you have any comments or any questions after this. Please feel free to email me at grakowsky@gmail.com. That's GRAKOWSKY@gmail.com, because I can no longer see your chat. Hopefully it will be there when this video posts to YouTube later, so that I can go and see if anyone else wants to reserve kits or anything. But so that was the demo for the bail. The good thing is I only have one more demo, and that is how to do the rope. The rope is size 15 seed beads done with tubular netting. There's tubular netting done with size 15 seed beads, excuse me, using your 15B and your 15A. So I'm going to get a new thread for this. And this is page 17 in the directions. This is where I had a correction that I had noted at the start. And I'm just going to place the correction underneath the camera so that those of you who did not see that at the beginning can see where the correction is. It's in part 4, the neck strap, step 42. This bead right here should be a 15A, not a 15B. Alright, so that's where I'm going to be starting. I'm going to pick up a 15B, 15A, 15B, 15A, 15B, 15A, so that I have 3 of each of the beads and they're alternating. Bring them down toward the end of my thread. It says to leave an 18-inch tail, and that's so that you can add the closure on the end of the necklace. On one side of the necklace, you're going to have a button, this Tiara Cast Apple Blossom button finding. You're going to be adding that with a little loop of beads, connecting it to the end of the necklace on one side. And then on the other side, you're just going to have a simple loop of beads coming off the end. That loop of beads goes around the button to create the closure. So leave an 18-inch tail so you can either add the loop or the button on that side. You're going to stitch through the first bead again to form a loop, and then all the beads once more. I'm going to refocus this. Nope, I did not want to focus. Up higher. Try again. There we go. Alright, so I've got my loop of beads. I'm stitching through all the beads again so that this is extra secure. And you want to make sure you stitch at least one bead beyond where the tail is so that you can hold the tail off to one side and your working thread is off to the other side. Alright, so you're going to start coming out of a 15B. You're going to pick up 3 15As, skip over the 15A, that's the next bead in the loop, and stitch through the 15B, which is the bead after that. You're going to repeat that 2 more times, picking up 3 15As, skipping over the next 15A, and stitching through the 15B after it. This is not as fun when I can't see you guys chatting. I'm really sorry that the chat is not working. I'm going to have to troubleshoot this and figure out why this happened and how to get it back up. What YouTube is displaying in my chat window underneath the last things that were said is unable to connect to chat. Please try again later. And I have no idea how to try again or why that happened. So that's where I am right now. I can't see any new chat. Hopefully you guys can still see the chat though, because I've read that that's what might be happening right now. So I've got my last set of 3 15As. I'm going to stitch through, skip over the 15A after the bead my thread is coming out of, stitch through the 15, did I say skip over the 15B? Skip over the 15A after the 15B my thread is coming out of, go through the 15B after that, and then step up through that next 15A. And I'm going to step up through one more bead, one more 15A. So my thread is coming out of the middle of the 3 15As in that first group of 3 15As that I added in that row. So the next row is going to be 15 Bs. These rows always alternate colors. I've got my 3 15 Bs. I'm going to skip over all the beads between this bead my thread is coming out of and the middle 15A in the next group of 3. I'm going to stitch through that one. I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to pick up 3 15Bs and stitch through the middle 15A in the next group of 3. And repeat once more. Pick up 3 15Bs and I'm going to stitch through the middle 15A in that first group of 3, which is the bead that the first set of 3 15Bs is attached to. So when I pull that tight, this should start forming up into a more tubular shape. I'm going to step up through the first 2 15Bs added. Alright, so for the next row, I'm going to alternate. I'm going to go back to the 15As. I'm going to pick up 3 15As and go through the middle 15B in the next group of 3. Pick up 3 15As, go through the middle 15B in the next group of 3, and pick up 3 15As. Go through the middle 15B in the next group of 3. Alright, then I step up through the first 2 15As in that group of 3. So this is just how the next wrap goes. This is a great stitch to do while you're watching something on TV or listening to a podcast or music, because it becomes very monotonous. Once you've got the hang of it, it's just the same thing over and over again. Here's my row of 15Bs, step up. And when I turn this, you'll see it's starting to come together. There is flexibility to this. It will move around. It's not a super stiff stitch, so it creates a rope that's very flexible. I really like it. It's a comfortable neck strap. So I'm going to pause the screen again for a moment, because I was going to leave this last 15 minutes of the class for questions, but since I'm unable to see the chat right now, I can't do that at the moment, and it's raining really hard. I'm going to put up my Be Right Back screen and go look again into this chat issue to see if I can reconnect the chat. So I will be right back. Okay. It looks like my chat might be fixed. I refreshed my page. Can someone send a message through the chat so I can see if it pops up? All right, I'm seeing the chat pop up now. Yay! All I had to do was refresh my my internet browser window that has my live streaming in it. So that's cool. All right, awesome. So if anyone has any questions, this is the time that I was reserving for questions. The only parts that I didn't show for this piece were the ends where you add the loop of beads and the loop of beads that hold the button, but I think it's that part's pretty easy compared to this other stuff. So if anyone has any questions for me, I'm happy to take them now. You heard me the whole time, Jeannie? That's so weird. I don't know what's up with YouTube, why I did that. But I'm glad to be able to see your chat again. Thank you, Mary, for saying that you like the project and the directions. I appreciate it. I welcome any feedback on my directions. I'm always trying to improve because communication's a two-way street. It's hard for me to tell sometimes how to most easily write directions, how they're, you know, the easiest way to say things, so that it'll be able to be understood. So I appreciate feedback. Oh, you heard the sound of the rain, Jill? Cool. When will the YouTube be available? Nancy, as soon as I end this stream, which will be around 3 o'clock, it will appear on my YouTube channel. So you can rewatch it again as soon as this ends. The rope is very easy to make, Marceline. Yes, it is. It's, you know, the thing that's cool about seed beads is it is intricate when you make these things because you're using these tiny little pieces. But just because it's intricate doesn't mean it's hard to do. How long is my neck strap? That is a good question. I should have measured it. And you know, I knew I was going to need my beading kit up here, and I did not bring it up. Let me see if I have a ruler nearby. I do not have a ruler nearby, so I will go grab one real quick. If I don't have one in the kitchen behind me, I have one downstairs. I'll be right back. Oh, I found one. All right, I had one right in the kitchen, so I'm going to measure this. I guess I should stretch it out flat and measure it. I have a good old-fashioned wooden ruler here. I'm going to measure right now. We've got 12, 12 plus 8.5 is 20.5 inches. You got pretty far while watching the other steps. Oh, awesome, Carrie. Can I put it on? Yes, I can put it on. Let me take off my, I'm wearing one of my Colorways of the Moon Cycle necklace from my book, just because I could. I have no reason to wear this stuff when I'm home with the kids, so it was fun to pick something out to wear while I was talking to you guys. I would like to do this again with another design, Nancy. I actually have, I have a problem. I buy lots of crystals in bulk because I have ideas for them that I want to use for kits, and I have a backlog of those right now. So I have several projects lined up that I'm planning on that I haven't gotten to, and hopefully this time at home will allow me time to do those, and I'll do classes online with them. Alright, so this is my necklace. Let me move. I guess I should just switch to the webcam view. So this is how long, this is a 20.5 inches where it comes down on me. This is sort of my rib line right here. This is a long necklace for me. I usually make them a little bit shorter, but because of the size of the medallion, I wanted a little more length, and I wanted it to come down and fall on my shirt or my clothes rather than up on my neck. I didn't want to wear it like that. I wanted to wear it down further. So there's enough beads in your kit to make, it should be at least 28 inches. I always add a lot of extra beads because I know I have a smaller neck than many people. And if you end up needing extra beads, please just email me and I will send them to you. Okay, let me look. I have a few more questions I want to answer. The baby's waking up. Oh, just in time. What's our next project? I'm not sure yet, Vanessa. I have these really large Swarovski rectangles that are custom coated with purple haze, and they're called rigor rectangles, or vigor rectangles rather. They're not something a lot of people carry, but I saw them in the catalog and I just got them custom coated. And so I think the next project's going to be a similar sort of thing where it's a bead embroidery pendant on a rope using those. And I have a bunch of different components to go with those as well. You had several questions further up on the stream, one concerning the picot on the outside of the cab and the direction the needle went through the beads. So when you're, Sharon, when you're doing the picots on the outside, you're coming out of the edge beads away. Oh, sorry, I forgot the bead. That camera wasn't on. So you're coming out of the beads, the edge beads, the 11s, in this direction, away from the bead embroidery. You're picking up the 3 beads for the picot, and you're stitching into the next edge bead toward the bead embroidery, like in toward the non-woven. And then to get to the next edge bead for the next picot, you're going to be stitching out, away from the bead embroidery. And I hope that answers your question about that. Let me see the other questions that we have. Is the 20 inches not counting the loops, Mary? The 20 inches is the 20.5 inches is counting the, I forgot I was wearing it, is counting the loops for the closure. So 20.5 inches would be how long this is when the necklace is closed. I measured it from this point all the way to this point. All right. Nancy, you have that same disease where you just stockpile Swarovski stuff? I'm glad I'm not alone. Thanks, Christine, for saying that this is a fun and beautiful project, and there will be more to come for sure. You guys like purple haze too, that's awesome. How tight should the tension be for the rope? As tight as you can make it. You don't want, because the weave is already flexible, you really don't want any space between the beads. You want it to be as tight as it can, and you're still going to have like flexibility to the rope. You meant on the inside of the cab. Oh, I'm sorry, Sharon. Okay. You were asking about these picots on the inside. So the direction you're going through them, after you pick up the 15B, you're stitching through the next 15A away from the 11As. So you're stitching like through the first one sort of toward the second 15A in the group of 3. Then you're skipping over the center one and stitching through the third one toward the 11As, away from the second or the middle 15A in that group. Thank you guys for saying you like the class. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you've enjoyed it. I'll continue answering questions for a few minutes. The baby is awake. I'm gonna give her a couple minutes, but then I'll bring her to come say hi, so you guys can see her for a minute. She's pretty cool. It was nice timing with her waking up just now. All right, let's see if there's more questions. Your bead stash has been waiting for this moment in time. You've justified all purchases of beading crystals. It's true. You gotta have them ready for when you can't go out and buy them anymore, right? You're welcome, Betty. I'm glad you enjoyed it. You're welcome, Doreen. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Nancy. Thank you. And you're new to embroidery, Nancy? Oh, cool. Well, it's a lot of fun, and if you get to the point where you're comfortable doing it without following a pattern, it's just really freeing, because you're kind of just painting with beads and putting them down where you think they look nice, and then if they don't look nice, you can just rip them back up and stitch something else over that spot. It's pretty cool. Yes, Carrie, you can go back and rewatch any of this. As soon as I end the stream, you'll be able to watch the whole thing again. Bye, Nancy. Love and hugs back. Hope to see you again. You like this class model, Joanne? Thank you. Yeah, it would be good for people who are in the middle of the nowhere, as you say, to be able to have a few hours to learn something, do something together. So, all right, if nobody has any other questions, I'm gonna go grab a Stella. Oh, Sharon has a question. Okay, I'm sorry. Centering the picot on the outside over the 6mm pearl and starting the picot on the side toward the bottom. So you definitely could start your first picot over the center 6mm pearl if you wanted to. The reason why I started my picots down on the side is because if you end up needing to fudge the last one, you don't notice it as much when it's off to the side. You might notice it more up at the top. So if you don't have an even number of beads, you're going to have to, if they're not centered over the 6mm one, you can skip two picots up at the top and just have them, you know, be a little further apart. So instead of having just one picot in between, you could have two. Thank you, Michelle. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Sandy. You're ready for my, I'm ready for my Academy Award. Oh, okay. Thank you, Sue. I'm glad you thought this was fun, Lynn. Thank you, Susan, for saying I'm awesome. You're welcome, Jeannie. Okay, so if nobody has any other questions, I'm gonna go grab the baby so she can say hi to you guys. I'm gonna move my bead mat though, because she likes to flip these over and throw them on the floor. And I'm gonna switch just to the webcam stream for a moment, and then I'll switch to my be right back message so I can go grab her. All right, and you have to go, Liz? Okay, well, thank you for coming. You are 5 hours away on another continent. Thank you for coming to this. Oh, this is awesome that we could all kind of be in the same virtual space at once. And I hope to see you again online, Liz. I should have worn the dress. Which dress? Oh, the one from the gala? I would feel a little weird wearing that at my kitchen table. I don't know. This has been the best part of your stay-at-home order? Oh, Kathleen, that is so nice. Thank you. You're welcome, Sharon. Can't believe it was your first live YouTube class. Well, thanks, Michelle. I appreciate it. I do teach in person quite a bit when we're, you know, when it's normal and we're allowed to leave our houses. I've been teaching for about 10 years, so I was just trying to do kind of the same thing that I do in person, but online. The main drawback to this format is that I can't see your faces and I can't see the pieces that you're working on to help correct any issues you might be having. So that's why I was thinking the Zoom class might be a better option in the future, but I wanted to start with something simple and that I knew. Thank you all for saying you liked the class. I do look forward to seeing all of you in person at some point, or most of you in person at some point. It's really nice to be able to travel around and get to see a bunch of people. All right, so I'm gonna go grab the baby. I'm gonna put up my weight screen, and just so she can say hi to y'all, or you can see her face. Be right back. Do you want to come say hi? All right. Here's the baby. This is Estella. Say hi. you say hi? Hi. Yeah, I got a necklace. Mary, yeah, that is true that Zoom has been hacked lately, but now a way to get around that is just by having a password for classes. So I can send out an email or something with the password for the class, and then that way people that aren't invited can't get in. I know, she's cute, isn't she? Yeah. Can you say hi? Hi. Yeah, good girl. All right, and Adelia is still watching cartoons, so she chose not to come say hi. But maybe next time you'll get to see the older sister. No, don't bite that. Don't bite it. All right, well, I just want to say thank you all for coming and for buying the kits and joining the class and just coming if you didn't buy the kits. It's just nice to feel a little bit connected to everyone, and I will be doing this again for sure. So please feel free to email me if you have any questions about the project. And you remember when she was in my belly? Yeah, I do too. That's really cool. It's neat. It's neat to go from that to this. Oh. All right, so I'm gonna say bye to everybody. We're gonna say bye. Can you say bye to everybody? And hopefully see you again. Feel free to watch again. You know, look at the steps while you're working and tell Adelia I miss her. I will do that. They're really great things. We have the best seat to learn. Thanks, Jeannie. Big hugs back. Thank you all for coming, and I wish we could be in person, but hey, this is sort of the next best thing. So take care, happy beading, and be well. Bye. Bye.